Welcome to House Lux Estate, your go-to place for insightful discussions. Today, we delve into an intriguing question. Why does Africa remain poor despite its immense mineral wealth? The irony is palpable. Africa, a continent rich in minerals, precious metals, and other natural resources, still finds itself grappling with widespread poverty. It's a paradox that has puzzled economists and social scientists alike. Over the course of this video, we'll be examining the key factors that contribute to this seemingly contradictory situation. We'll be looking at the exploitation of Africa's mineral wealth and the role of unfair trade practices. We'll discuss the impact of economic policies and infrastructure, or the lack thereof, on the continent's ability to capitalize on its resources. And we cannot ignore the specter of corruption that often looms large in these discussions. So buckle up, folks. We're about to embark on a journey to understand this complex issue. Stay with us as we unpack the paradox of Africa's wealth and poverty. Africa boasts of a vast array of mineral resources, including gold, diamonds, oil, and more. The continent is a treasure trove, teeming with the very resources that fuel the global economy. Let's delve deeper into this wealth and the countries that hold the lion's share. Africa's mineral wealth is staggering. To give you an idea, South Africa alone holds around 75% of the world's platinum reserves. It's also home to a rich deposit of gold, manganese, and chromium. Moving north, we find the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country blessed with an abundance of cobalt, copper, and diamonds. It's worth mentioning that Congo's cobalt reserves are so vast that they account for over half of the world's total. But the wealth doesn't stop there. Angola's diamond fields are legendary, while Nigeria, Libya, and Algeria boast some of the largest oil reserves in Africa. Then there's Botswana, a country that has built its economy on diamond mining, and Guinea, renowned for its high-quality bauxite, a raw material essential for aluminium production. And let's not forget about the lesser-known minerals, like tantalum from Rwanda, a key component in electronics, or the phosphate from Morocco, critical for agriculture. The list goes on and on, each mineral adding a new layer to Africa's rich geological tapestry. This vast mineral wealth should, in theory, translate to economic prosperity. However, the reality is far from this. Despite being home to a wealth of minerals, many African countries rank low on the Human Development Index, a measure of wealth, education, and life expectancy. The paradox of plenty, or the resource curse as it's often called, is a phenomenon that plagues many resource-rich countries, and Africa is no exception. The abundance of natural resources has not translated into widespread prosperity. Instead, it has often led to economic instability, environmental degradation, and socio-political unrest. Despite this immense wealth, Africa's economic narrative tells a different story. But why is this the case? To understand this paradox, we need to delve into the complexities of exploitation, unfair trade, economic policies, and corruption. Stay tuned as we unravel this perplexing economic conundrum in the next scenes. One of the key reasons Africa remains impoverished is the exploitation and unfair trade practices. Stepping back into history, we see a continent rich in resources, yet the people living on the land, poor. This paradox was largely due to colonial exploitation. Colonial powers, primarily from Europe, extracted vast quantities of Africa's mineral wealth without adequately compensating the continent. These powers built infrastructure, yes, but primarily to transport these minerals out of Africa, not to benefit the local populations. Fast forward to today, and we see a similar pattern, albeit with new players. Multinational corporations from all corners of the globe are now the primary extractors of Africa's mineral wealth. They often operate under agreements that offer little benefit to the African nations themselves. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for instance, is home to over 60% of the world's cobalt, a crucial component in lithium-ion batteries. Yet many international mining companies operating there pay minimal royalties, and the wealth generated does not trickle down to the general population. Moreover, unfair trade practices further exacerbate the issue. Africa's raw materials are often exported to developed nations where they are processed and sold back to Africa at exorbitant prices. For example, Africa exports raw cocoa beans, but imports the finished chocolate products. The continent has the raw materials, but lacks the infrastructure and technology to process them, leading to a cycle of dependency and poverty. Additionally, trade barriers imposed by developed nations limit Africa's ability to compete on a global scale. Tariffs, quotas, and subsidies protect domestic industries in developed nations, at the expense of producers in developing countries like those in Africa. The end result? Africa's minerals are extracted, processed, and sold back to it at inflated prices, while the profits from these activities go to foreign entities. The wealth, instead of benefiting the continent, ends up in the pockets of foreign entities. Another contributing factor is the continent's economic policies and infrastructure. Africa's economic terrain is a tapestry of policies and infrastructure, or rather, the lack thereof, which significantly influence the maximization of its mineral wealth. Infrastructure, the backbone of any thriving economy, is unfortunately lacking in many parts of Africa. Roads, railways, and ports are essential for transporting minerals from extraction sites to processing plants and eventually to markets. However, the dearth of these facilities has made it challenging to harness the continent's mineral wealth effectively. Then there's the matter of electricity. Many mineral extraction and processing activities are power-intensive, requiring reliable and consistent supplies of electricity. But in many African countries, power outages are a common occurrence, making it difficult for these activities to proceed smoothly, thus affecting productivity and profitability. Let's not forget about economic policies. These set the stage for how resources are managed, how revenues are allocated, and how the benefits of mineral wealth are distributed among the populace. Unfortunately, many African countries have policies that are not conducive to sustainable and inclusive economic growth. For instance, some nations have policies that favor foreign investors at the expense of local businesses. These policies often result in a disproportionate share of the profits from mineral extraction going to foreign companies, leaving little for reinvestment into the local economy. Moreover, some African nations have policies that do not adequately address environmental concerns associated with mineral extraction. This lack of environmental stewardship can lead to degradation of the land, air, and water, further draining the continent's resources and potentially causing long-term harm to local communities. Furthermore, the absence of robust policies that ensure transparency and accountability often leads to mismanagement of revenues from the mineral sector. This mismanagement can result in funds being siphoned off for personal gain, rather than being reinvested into the economy to stimulate growth and development. These factors have significantly stalled the growth and development of Africa. Last but certainly not least, we cannot ignore the role of corruption in this narrative. It's a cancerous growth, gnawing at the potential prosperity of the continent, and one of the primary reasons why Africa remains poor despite its mineral wealth. Let's delve deeper into this issue. Imagine a vast, rich mine brimming with precious minerals. Ideally, the revenue from this mine would be used to improve the lives of the local population, building schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. However, in many parts of Africa, this is far from the reality. Instead, what often happens is a tale of greed and power. Corrupt officials and business people siphon off the wealth, lining their own pockets while the majority languish in poverty. The World Bank estimates that Africa loses nearly $50 billion a year to illegal outflows and price manipulation, with the mining sector contributing a significant portion of these losses. Take Guinea, for instance. In 2008, one of the world's largest untapped iron ore deposits was sold to a multinational for a mere $165 million, a fraction of its actual value. This deal, later found to be riddled with corruption, robbed the country of billions in potential revenue. But corruption isn't just a matter of a few bad apples. It's systemic, deeply entrenched in political and economic structures. It deters foreign investment, skews income distribution, and undermines the rule of law. As a result, it not only exacerbates poverty, but also stunts economic growth and development. Moreover, corruption diverts resources away from public services like education and healthcare, which are critical for poverty reduction. It's a vicious cycle. Corruption breeds poverty, and poverty, in turn, fuels corruption. In the end, it's the ordinary Africans who pay the price. They are left with the short end of the stick, struggling to make ends meet in a land abundant with resources they cannot benefit from. Corruption has eaten into the very fabric of Africa's economy, further exacerbating the poverty levels. So there we have it, the paradox of Africa's wealth and poverty. Despite the continent's rich mineral resources, the realities of exploitation, unfavorable economic policies, inadequate infrastructure, and rampant corruption impede Africa's growth. The exploitation of Africa's mineral wealth by foreign entities is one of the critical issues. Unfair trade practices often leave African countries at a disadvantage, with a significant portion of their wealth funneled out. Economic policies in many African nations are not structured to favor local industries. This lack of support undermines the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises that could drive economic growth. Infrastructure is also a significant challenge. Without reliable roads, electricity, and water supply, industrial growth is stifled. Finally, corruption remains a deep-seated problem, diverting resources meant for development into personal coffers. A turnaround in these areas is vital for Africa's growth. It's a complex problem, but with concerted effort, a brighter future is possible. Thank you for joining us on House Lux Estate. Remember to subscribe for more insightful discussions. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.